Just then was the relaxing sounds of Ezra Feinberg. That was Recumbent Speech, and at the top, Coton with Shopping List. Two very lo-fi, piano-driven ambient tracks. I hope you enjoyed them, and if you made it the whole way through without skipping, more power to you. That's what we love here at PTA. Okay, now I think this is what the people really want to be locking into, Tom, not my story about Brian Eno. They want to know what the hell your algorithm has been up to.
My algorithm, oh man, look, my algorithm hasn't been as crazy at the moment. I've actually been, consuming a little bit more long-form media actually.
Yep.
And one of the things I felt like is worth mentioning / I'm really interested in at the moment is regenerative farming. There's a bit of a regenerative farming movement that kind of says, hey, we're actually mismanaging the land, not doing it sustainably. My buddy Toby Anderson, who hopefully will come on the show one day, he is a farmer from Kojonup and he's been sending me some really cool resources on it. My other boy, friend of the show, Jeremy McGovern, he's really interested in farming and sustainable agriculture, and there's some cool guys in Western Australia, Bandarang Farm.
Yep.
That they're doing like a fruit forest, with the idea being that if you plant trees in a specific arrangement with bushes in a specific arrangement, so let's say a lemon tree next to a lavender bush, next to an apple tree, next to some shrubs, the soil can actually regenerate on its own. The plants can coexist and help fund each other's nutrients that they might be deficient in. And so the long-term output of the farm's actually a lot better. But what started it, I suppose, or what one really good resource that I'd love to point listeners in the direction of is an Australian story about a dude called Charles Massey.
Yes, okay.
And anyway, it sort of follows his journey with regenerative agriculture, and he inherited, or his parents had been farming for a long time, and he just did what they did, which was, glyphosate spray, NPK, turn the soil over. Just
did you say NPK?
NPK.
What does that stand? NPK. What does that stand for?
Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. It's like
It doesn't sound good for you, man.
It's just like standard fertilizer, right? So yep. NPK is what you put on your plants if you want them to grow well, because they're the isolates that the plant needs to grow. Certainly, at least that was our understanding of it. But really what it needs to grow is like probably hundreds of different variations of all kinds of different things organically that you're substituting for NPK. So I think this is the kind of argument is that you get a tomato in the end, but really what's inside the tomato is actually doesn't have a broad spectrum of nutrients. It's only got the few that it needs to look like a tomato, if you know what I'm saying. So
he inherits the farm, and he's just goes along doing the normal thing, and then has a day where he's just like, wait a second.
No, it has like 3 years of drought and his soil going bad and these big dust storms. So you ruin the topsoil when you farm like that. And so the topsoil loses its capacity to hold together and it effectively dies, right? So everyone sees the soil as a non-living organism, inanimate thing, when in fact it is a living organism. The world's a living organism. Everything is living, and it needs to be looked after, regenerated, and managed. And effectively, he takes everyone on his sort of journey of realizing, hang on, like this drought's dropping everyone. Like no one can farm like this, and so then he puts a few years into figuring out what the correct way to farm is. Sort of re-diverts this sort of water stream back onto his property, allows it to soak into the ground, like sort of puts a few principles into like, no, this is how it needs to be managed. And then he notices that it's not just about the water that gets diverted. You actually need to put the reeds in. You need to put like a bit of structure and plant life into the ground to hold the water in the ground, and how he sort of takes the viewer through a process where he shows them how you regenerate the land, and you watch this sort of old creek that has nothing running through it get populated with reeds, and then the frogs return, and then the birds return, and then all of a sudden this thing starts thriving again. And his farm stands out amongst all the other farms. I think he's about an hour or two out of Canberra. And anyway, him and his other buddy, who are these old two gurus, they pretty much figure out a way to regeneratively farm and create, these really cool, sustainable farms and reintroduce old practices and sort of go against the idea that, this Australian landscape wasn't just this barren thing. It was actually getting managed by the Indigenous culture, and it was getting regenerated. And if you actually keep livestock on the paddock for the right amount of time, then move them on and then bring in a different type of livestock, maybe goats, then bring in your chickens. Like, there's actually a bit of a formula about how to manage the land, and shows for the first time, I think, how you would create a sustainable farming environment in Australia. And I just think it's a really amazing resource. The link will be in the description. It's an Australian story. It's about 45 minutes or an hour. He's got a book called The Call of the Reed Warbler, which is a book I'm reading, and it's quite long and it's really intricate, but it's a blend of storytelling of his own plus scientific references.
Wow.
And it's really magical. And I suppose, sorry to ramble, Matt.
No, there's no rambling there. I like listening to it.
While I'm on it, there's also a podcast that got sent to me, and the dude's name is Patrick McManaway.
Patrick McManaway.
Yep. And he's a spiritualist type dude. His mum was into, it sounds like, some quite out there non-material type stuff. And anyway, he has an approach where he's like, the land is alive and all the animals are alive, and you can actually kind of communicate your intentions to them. The same way, it's proven again by science, which I hate saying, but the same way in which you talk to your plants, right? And it actually helps them grow, that multiplied, like that expanded. So you can actually, the most natural thing for you is to live in harmony with the land. And he does this podcast with a podcast provider called the Regenerative podcast.
Yep.
Again, link will be in the description. It's called The Land Whisperer. But really he's behind a global wave of regenerative farming, and it's a very spiritual chat, but it's honestly one of the most amazing couple hours of conversation that I've ever heard. And I think it'd be wrong of me not to mention it on this platform, and to put listeners, if you're into that kind of stuff, point them in the right direction to what is just an amazing chat between two people that's really informative.
What's the sort of link between the spiritual sense that this guy's not preaching but talking about, and the scientific, like, regeneration? Like, how is that link made in the pod?
Oh, well, I think with all the things in this podcast, certainly the link doesn't exist scientifically yet. Like, science is kind of limited in a lot of ways to material reality. So when people talk about, I meditate on the land and give it my intention, and I talk to the birds, and I connect with them and I connect with the land, it's like, oh, well, that's just wishy-washy bullshit. And, that's fine for people to have that opinion, but there's no, like, the whole plant thing, that Japanese guy did an experiment with talking to plants and talking to water and saying hate speech to them, then neutral stuff and then positive stuff, and it literally influences the way things materialize. And I think especially with developments in quantum physics and observer principles and things like that.
Observer principles?
Yeah, so things, the observer principles, things don't actually exist until someone observes them. And so there's kind of a bit of that idealism in it where you can control, like we've spoken about, I think, or schools of thought say, you control reality by the way you view it.
Yep.
If you've got a negative, poor me mindset, that's how things will turn out. If you've got a great positive mindset, that's how things will turn out. And so this guy seems to think that you can communicate with the land, you can help manage it, you can declare your intention, as well as implement, things that have been around for thousands of years that, again, get classed as, crazy counterculture ideas. But, for example, he uses, there's certain stone circles and sundials, and he uses geomagnetism, which is kind of like the Earth's magnetic field concentrated in spots by rocks, which he theorizes is what maybe something like Stonehenge is about, right? Like a big circle of a big arrangement of rocks of the certain material will create a condensed magnetic field. Anyway, you put seeds in Earth's magnetic field or in any magnetic field, the germination rate of those seeds goes from 35% up to 90, 95%, 100%. So he's kind of got this cool combination of spiritual, we are nature, you have to lean into that and sort of accept that, and it's very natural, as well as, hey, there's actually lots of cool ancient techniques like geomagnetism that will help your farm, help your seeds to sprout.
Yes, I'm right there with you.
You there with me, or you think I'm crazy?
No, I don't. But it's something my mum's like really into with her garden and looking up different ways to actually like use the land and what is correct, and how can I not just like the germination of the seeds, but it's just like once they've come through, how can they be managed organically?
Yeah, and I feel like
what bugs do we need there?
Yeah.
What birds do we need to attract?
Yeah.
What plants will help protect my dill?
Yes, exactly. And one of the things, I know we had a bit of a laugh about it last season, but, we talked about cathedrals and copper wire harvesting energy from the ether.
Yeah.
Because there is energy.
It can genuinely influence the growth of plants.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a copper prong just stabbed into the ground.
Copper coil needs to be.
Copper coil,
because when a current runs through a coil, it creates a magnetic field. That's how electromagnetic fields work. And that's in lots of motors. It's in all kinds of different things. It's completely established science. So if that's called electroculture as well, that's worth looking into. But yeah, if you kind of get like a zinc bolt and a bunch of copper and you stake in, these like copper coils around your garden, it protects the plants from the bugs. It helps the growth rate.
It's called electroculture gardening.
Electroculture gardening. And so there's these principles that, again, like we talk about, they're on the edge of science. Like science will kind of slowly catch up. People say, oh, it's not true or whatever. But magnetic fields obviously have something to do with the way that plants and humans and living organisms grow. I'm looking at a study right now, in fact, about it, and oxidative stress, soluble protein matter, DNA quantity, all these things that actually happen, although the mechanism is just not known. The underlying mechanism.
Here it says the copper conducts low-level electrical currents, which is said to enliven soil and stimulate plant growth. It is said to reduce the need for fertilizers and toxic pesticides.
Absolutely, and it's the same idea behind, hydrogen water and all this stuff, where it's like actually having a bit of electrolysis and a bit of current in the water, whether it be from, well, not from some water bottle you bought online from Gary fucking whoever that is, but from running down a mountain on a stream, picking up minerals from a rock, like excited water from a river, it can actually be better for you than just stagnant still water. So these kind of ideas that, literally season 1 are like fringe, but now it's just coming out that there's actually so much more going on, A, in the ether, B, with electromagnetism, things that you can't see that influence the way things grow. And I'm finding it really interesting to watch that fruit in farming, pardon the pun. Here's 2 songs.
Here's 2 songs. This is PTA. God bless. Tom. We'll see you shortly.
See you on the farm.